Creating a more recovery-focused approach to risk and risk management is absolutely central to providing more recovery-focused services. See, recovery is about rebuilding a meaningful, satisfying and contributing life and growing within and beyond what's happened to you. It's a personal journey of discovery that involves making sense of what's happened, discovering your own resources and possibilities, taking back control over your life and the challenges you face, building a new sense of self, meaning and purpose in life, and pursuing your dreams and ambitions. Too often, people who use mental health services tell us that they see them as obsessed with problems and risk, rather than helping them to build on their strengths, move forward in life. But while recovery necessarily involves taking some risks, safety is important. The challenge is to help people to do the things they want to do, to live the lives they want to lead, as safely as possible. A recovery-focused approach to risk assessment and promoting safety has got to be founded on co-production, shared understanding, shared decision-making, and shared responsibility for safety. Too often, people aren't involved in their risk assessment and management plans. They don't know what they contain, and they may not even know of their existence. It just isn't possible for us to know what's going on in someone's head, to watch them all the time. We have to use their expertise and involve them in keeping themselves and others safe. Therefore, we've got to start by recognising the expertise of lived experience as well as that of professionals. People often know when something's wrong. Too often, our inquiries into critical incidents show us that people asked for help in the months leading up to the incident, but those requests for help weren't always heeded by our services. By the same token, we often know what helps us to feel safe and calm. We must also use and recognise the expertise of people who are close to the person, their relatives and friends. People who know us well can often spot something's amiss long before others can see it. Again, lessons from our critical incidents tell us that often relatives and friends spotted something was wrong, but no one really took any notice of them. Similarly, those who are close to us have often learned what helps to make us feel calm, helps to keep us safe. It's therefore critical that we use this expertise in understanding risk and developing safety plans. Then we've also got to understand the situation and what's happened from the perspective of the person we're working with, and of course the people who are close to them, not just our own perspective as mental health practitioners. What we do is determined by how we see the world and what we want to achieve. Everyone sees things in different ways, whether we be mental health practitioners, people with mental health problems, or the people who are close to them. And everyone wants to achieve different things. Unless we understand the world from the individual's perspective, we can't help them to keep safe. Therefore, in order to help them to do what they want to do and to keep them safe, we need to understand the person's ambitions and goals, what's important to them, what they value. We need to understand their perspective on what's happened in the past, their risk history. We also need to understand how they see things now. Their understandings may be very different from our own. And then, of course, we've got to understand the person's own view of risks and threats. While we as mental health practitioners might focus on risks of violence and self-harm, the person themselves may be more concerned with the risk of losing face, losing their friends, their job, their college place, losing their freedom, or stigma and discrimination. The primary concerns of relatives and friends may be very different again. They may fear for the safety of the person they love, or indeed their own safety. We can then set about co-producing risk management or safety plans. Sometimes it's easier to talk to someone about safety, The word risk tends to conjure up all sorts of images of mayhem and murder, and those reinforce the negative stereotypes about people with mental health problems. Safety plans, in conjunction with care and support plans, need to address risks from everyone's perspective. They need to address everyone's concerns, and they need to be explicitly directed towards helping the person to take back control themselves. And of course, they need to use all the resources available, not just mental health practitioners and services, but the resources of the individual and the people who are close to them. This really means sharing responsibility for safety. What the person, him or herself, can do. This might include how they can deal more effectively with the everyday stresses and strains, difficult situations and problems that arise, as well as where they can go for help if they spot signs that all isn't well. We also need to think about what other people close to the person, their friends, their relatives, can do. This might include how they can help the person to deal with difficulties that arise, where they can go for help if they're worried. And remember, there may be all sorts of people in the person's network who may be able to help. For example, I used to work with a man, and the first signs of problems were when he didn't turn up at his usual cafe for lunch. The cafe owner could then alert us that maybe everything wasn't right, and we could then go and help. We also, of course, need to think about what mental health practitioners and services can do. And this might involve discussing with the person how we might be able to tell when things are amiss, how we might be able to tell when the person is upset, angry, stressed out, and what we can do when we notice these signs, what we can do to help the person to get back on an even keel. And of course also what we will do if the person or the people close to them come to us and tell us that things aren't going very well. This sort of collaborative working isn't going to be easy. It can take time. Time to get to understand someone and how best to help them. Time for a person to get to know how best to help themselves. And time to develop a relationship in which we really can trust each other. So we're going to need to continually update and refine our safety plans. There will also be times when people are very distressed, when people can't engage in discussions about safety. We might have to develop initial plans that we review with the person when they become able to engage. But even better, we can try to work with the person before the crisis to develop joint crisis plans in advance, work out what we will do when problems arise. And we must use every crisis as a shared learning experience to refine our plans. But of course, there will also be times when people don't want to engage with us in discussions about safety. But as well as explaining how we see things and why we're doing what we're doing, we can still listen to and take seriously and record their side of the story, even if this is really very different from the way we see things. It's only by doing this that we can slowly develop the mutual understanding and respect that are necessary for genuine collaborative working.